Do we know for sure that they're going to draft a quarterback next year? I think that's their plan right now. But they have 2 rookies here, and we keep talking about trying to evaluate them. Like, could they theoretically invest in one of these 2?
You ready to set it off for the rest of the show?
And like be like, hey, next year's about these guys, and then use those 2 picks on something else? Like, is that a concept that people can wrap their heads around? Because Earl, I was talking about this yesterday with JP.
I don't like that. I like because I understand exactly where you coming from.
I just can't wrap my head around the plan at quarterback right now. Because I think they're keeping 4 guys on Tuesday. When they got to cut this roster down, I think they're keeping all 4. Not Tyler Huntley. I think Kenny Pickett stays. And so if that happens, the depth chart's going to be Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and then the 2 rookies in whatever order. I'm assuming it's going to be Gabriel and Shedeur. But because that doesn't seem like there's anything he can do at this point. He could freaking build a new skyscraper in Cleveland tomorrow, and it'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool, but no, Dillon Gabriel's still ahead of you.
He could find a cure of cancer tomorrow.
He could throw a football over those mountains over there like Uncle Rico, and it wouldn't even matter either.
He could clear the debt in the United States. He's still gonna be 4th on the depth chart.
It won't matter. So so that's my point. Is like, if their plan is we're gonna have Joe Flacco start maybe the first 6 games. And then if things go awry, all right, now we're going to go to Kenny Pickett. What do you need to see Kenny Pickett for at that point? Like, you're going to leave yourself with 3 games maybe each, potentially. Again, this is potential. I don't know how the season's going to play out. Maybe somebody gets hurt, whatever. But you're not going to leave yourself a lot of time to really evaluate these guys. And the Browns keep talking about, we're being very patient with these young guys. Kevin Stefanski talked about the other day, I asked him about like patience with a young player. Who did I ask about? When it comes to just certain guys in general and how they handle that. And he talked about, I think it was Jamari Thrash. I was saying being patient with the guy who was like a late round pick last year, and now he's kind of coming along. But it took that's a perfect example though. Like Jamari Thrash last year was a 5th round pick, didn't really do much, had issues catching the football. Now this year we're like, hey, he's like the number 3 receiver in this order. Like he's actually had a really good camp. And so he came around after a full year in the NFL. If that's what they're thinking the plan is for like Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, that they're going to need more time, how can we sit here and be like if their plan is to be patient, they don't really have time to be patient because they have those picks next year. They got to find a franchise quarterback. And so if they're not going to evaluate these guys immediately and start one of them week 1, which I understand why they're not doing that, then when is your evaluation actually going to come for these guys on an NFL football field? Or is it just going to be based off of the fact that like in the meeting rooms, Dillon Gabriel has a supercomputer brain and Shedeur Sanders maybe doesn't, and so they like that more, and so they decided to keep Dillon Gabriel? I don't know, but I'm like sitting here scratching my head because I'm convinced at this point they're keeping 4 quarterbacks, and maybe they'll surprise me and they won't. But I'm sitting here scratching my head like, what's the plan at quarterback if you're keeping all 4 this year and you're not going to evaluate these young guys, and then we still think they're drafting one next year?
Throw the oop. Because I'm about to continue on your point. Because to me, I 100% agree with you. You talk about fine line. You talk about reading between the lines. I heard the question that you asked to Kevin Stefanski about the patience. Go back 2 weeks ago. Jimmy Haslam said this is a 2 to 3 year project, right? Now, I don't agree with the whole plan and out plan, but let's put this from a Browns point of view, okay? We both believe that the Cleveland Browns won't be as bad as advertised, right? So that means they're floating somewhere between 5 and 8 wins this season, okay? Here's my big bold prediction. I think Lenore Sellers and Arch Manning both go back to school. And I don't think the Cleveland Browns will be bad enough, nor will the Jacksonville Jaguars be bad enough for the Cleveland Browns to get a Garrett Nussmeier or a Cade Klubnik. Even with the 2 first-round picks, those teams that's going to be sitting in those positions are going to also be looking for a quarterback to change their franchise. And they're not going to give up that position because their jobs are going to be on the line too to get one of those quarterbacks. So to your point, if the season plays out that way, and again, we don't know how it's going to play out, but if it play out that way, there won't be enough time or games left to evaluate either rookie. And then you turn the page to 2026. Okay, these 2 have had the majority of this season, hypothetically, to sit behind the veterans. Let's see what they've learned. Let's see what they've done in practice. Let's see what year 2 looks like for both of them being an NFL quarterback. We go out here, we see where we go from there. Because I'm going to tell you, to me, with the, and I could be wrong, I'll eat crow if I'm wrong, but to me, with the belief that Arch Manning and Lenore Sellers is going back to school, you are setting yourself up for the 2027 draft class to be dominant. You have Ryan Williams from Alabama, Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, Arch Manning from Texas, Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. That 2027 class might be more appealing than the 2026 class. So to me, I don't think I think your point is very, very valid to where it's a strong possibility that it's not a quarterback that they spend those 2 first-round picks on.
Well, let me say this, too, because
people about to be mad at us.
If we're thinking about the the future of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, right? If that's what we're sort of thinking about here, it's like, well, how can they possibly not draft a quarterback if they have these 2 picks and whatever? And so here's the other thing. If they decide we're going to punt again, because the theory is, even if they're not in position, Earl, to if they're not top 2 like last year and they can't draft one of these quarterbacks that they really like a Klubnik, like a Nussmeier, whatever, the idea is you package the 2 first-round picks together, you trade up, move to the spot you want to get that quarterback. But like you said, there might be somebody else there that doesn't want to give that pick up because they want the quarterback, right? And so you can always punt, though. You can always punt, and they have 2 firsts. Maybe the Browns are the 5th pick, and they're like, we're not in the range that we want to be to get the quarterback that we really want this year, so we're going to trade our 5th pick and trade back. And we're still going to have the Jaguars pick this year in the first round. And we're going to get another team's first rounder this year that they're going to swap with us. And we're going to get their first rounder next year. So then you go from having okay, you had 2 firsts this year. Now you're going to have 2 firsts next year. And you'll still have 2 firsts this upcoming year. And maybe you just don't get the quarterback, but you fill out the roster in other places. They might need a new tackle. They might need a new left tackle if DeJuan Jones isn't it. Or maybe DeJuan Jones is good, but they're like, we want to move you back to the right side. We need a left tackle. They're going to need more wide receiver help. They
might need a guard.
They haven't really drafted a receiver that they hit on, especially not early, since Andrew Berry's been here. There's going to be a number of spots.
Might need a guard. Might need a corner.
Exactly. There's a lot of things that they're also still going to have to address. It's not just quarterback. And so, I don't know, man. It could set the stage where, maybe Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski go into the 2026 season, and it's all right, you're putting you're banking on your lottery ticket is seeing if Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel in year 2 figure it out, and if their development's coming along, and if you invest in them, then that's your choice. And then maybe it ends with them getting fired. But guess what? I think if you're Jimmy Haslam, you're okay with that. Not that you want everybody to get fired, but you're okay with that setup, because then in 2027, some of these other quarterbacks might be coming out. You'll still have 2 first-round picks, and that's a great situation for whoever the next head coach you're trying to hire is. Hey, come work for me. We got 2 first-round picks. You can pick your quarterback yourself.
What did Houston do a couple years ago? They found some type of way to finesse to get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson with back-to-back picks, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm just dreaming off a chart.
Well, that was a lot of because of the Deshaun trade.
Hey, listen, I'm wishing upon a star right now. But with the stadium coming, to your point, right? That's a great selling point if you can somehow, some way flip some 29 first-round picks and you find yourself in a way to draft. If things don't work out this way, let's say if it was Arch or Lenore's plus a Jeremiah or a Ryan Williams.
I just don't know how.
A new GM? That you can sell that to a new GM.
You sell that to a lot of people.
Yeah,
I just don't know how you sell, hey, we're being patient with these young quarterbacks if your plan is just to then railroad them with another one at the end. And it might still be the case because maybe they think this next class is better. But
me and you both
I don't know how you can preach
never know
patience.
With this team.
I just don't know how you can preach patience and then you're not going to really have much time to even evaluate them.
We make sense. Sometimes everything they do don't. Sometimes everything they do don't make sense. But I guess it's not supposed to make sense to us. It's not our job. So as we talk about fringe guys that are fighting to make this roster, but we had a caller talk about a guy that will be on this roster, Isaiah Bond, and he asked about, what information that we got. And it's funny, we came into the studio and you actually had some information, some insight on Isaiah Bond.
Yeah, I mean, more so just, what I think people should kind of expect from him. I think, first of all, it's going to probably take some time to really get him, up to speed here. I wouldn't expect much from him today. I think he's going to be out there. Kevin Stefanski made it sound like he'll play some. But they're still getting them up to speed. He's still learning the playbook. What I think is interesting is how they will sort of use him. I do think the caller asked specifically about taking the top off of defense. I think that's probably your number one use for him, right? Is hey, we need a guy to go run a go route and get open, and that's what you're going to sort of use him for. My biggest concern is just the lack of production that he comes with from college, because I think sometimes, Earl, and we were talking about this earlier. I think sometimes teams fall in love with a player just because they're fast. It's the whole idea of teams loving a guy because they have the traits, but not necessarily like everything else that comes with it, and you think you can like get that out of him anyway. You're like, hey, we'll coach that, or once we get him in our system, we know it'll kind of come through. And I just don't know that that's always the case. Somebody shared, I think it was Cleve TA, our guy Cleve TA. He shared a list of like all the wide receivers drafted since 2003, under 6 foot, sub 190 pounds, and ran a sub 4.40, which is what Isaiah Bond. And the list is not like great. There's not a lot of players on here that like turned into household names or great players in the NFL. The only two that really, I think, turned into household names are Tyler Lockett and Deshaun Jackson. That's it. There's others on there that had a lot of potential. Tavon Austin's on this list. Calvin Austin III is on this list. Roman Wilson, who's currently playing for the Steelers, is on this list, so I guess TBD on him. Marquise Goodwin, who was like he was like an average NFL receiver. If he turns into an average NFL receiver, I think you feel pretty good about it. But like this idea that Isaiah Bond is good, like if anyone believes that Isaiah Bond is going to like fix this wide receiver room, or that he's going to like give you some massive production here, I just am kind of like pump the brakes on that. Because I think it's hard for some of these guys, given what history tells us, to actually give you that. And I just worry about the lack of production that came with the fact that he was like a number one wide receiver in Texas specifically, but also one of the top receivers in Bama, at Bama when he was there. And the production just did not follow him. That sort of is a red flag to me. So still much like a jury still out situation for me, on top of the fact that he has to get acclimated. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they use him. I'm sure at some point Kevin Stefanski is going to use him in an end around, because we know Kevin Stefanski just can't help himself. That's his go-to play. So maybe we get a Kevin Stefanski end around play with Isaiah Bond today, and we get the debut of that. We'll see.
Yeah, you got to be careful with guys that's fast, right? Because to your point, not every guy that's fast can actually play wide receiver.
And we all remember
NFL.
Anthony Schwartz.
But not just that. Like, there's been the Anthony Schwartz examples, but then there's been guys like Xavier Worthy, for example, who in his short stint in Kansas City shown that he was just more than a gadget guy. And so we don't know if Isaiah Bond would just be a gadget guy, or if he has the potential to actually be a quality NFL wide receiver. He was highly recruited coming out of high school, 5-star recruit. This is a guy that was one of Nick Saban boys. And when Saban decided to leave, he left. I do know I seen a play like a week or so ago. He caught a game-winning touchdown from Jalen Milroe in the Iron Bowl. So that was pretty cool. But he did underperform.
That's probably his most iconic play is that Hail Mary at the end of the Iron Bowl. Yeah,
he did underperform when he was at Texas. But I'll say this. All those wide receivers kind of underperformed while they was at Texas, but at the same time, they really didn't get quality quarterback play as well. Now, Golden ended up being a first-round pick, but I'm just saying. So it'd be interesting to see. I do agree with you. He's not the guy. He's a guy in a room that can use another guy. So, it's going to be a contributing factor. We don't have that it factor at wide receiver, and more often than not, the Cleveland Browns have not had that. So how we go about that going forward, we shall see.
Yeah, I think it's just a TBD thing. But I understand where people want to see him today. I think he's probably going to play. I'm assuming later on in the game he'll play, more so than early on. But yeah, we'll see sort of, I guess, what the early blueprint is on a guy like that. And I do think if you're watching today's game, again, preseason game number 3, final dress rehearsal, all that, that is something I understand watching for. I think everyone's going to be tuning in for the quarterbacks. I think people want to see what the first-team offense does, and I think people want to see what guys like Isaiah Bond are going to bring to the table here in their first time trotting out on that field and playing for the Cleveland Browns. So I totally understand where people want to see that.